Hello and welcome to Route 1 Football, the very first episode in a brand new series brought to you by Star Sports. In this series, we're going to be discussing all the big transfer news, the talking points, the stories and the rumours, focusing mainly on the Premier League, but with 8 teams competing in Europe this season. We'll also be having a look at those UK teams in European competitions. Joining me at the wonderful Star Sports shop in Curzon Street, I have 2 legends, one of the airwaves, one on the pitch, Alex Crook and Robbie Savage. Guys, I mean, exciting times at the moment, obviously, with the transfer window still open. We're going to start with the most exciting signings that you have spotted so far during the window. What do you think, Robbie?
I wouldn't say an exciting one, but I think Aston Villa, their business has been very good. Pau Torres, I watch a lot of Villarreal. I do like my European football, and I think he can add to Aston Villa massively. I think the recruitment's been good through the summer, 3 very good signings. But Pau Torres, for me, it's not an exciting. He's not going to score goals. He's not going to be creative. But I think defensively for Aston Villa, Pau Torres could be a really astute signing.
Have you got an exciting transfer for us?
Yeah, more exciting than a centre-back, I think. But I think we're on the same lines. Yeah. Aston Villa, my dark horse for the season. You look at the way they finished last year under Unai Emery, not too many teams picked up more points than they did during that spell. They brought in Monchi as sporting director. I was actually told right at the start of the summer that Villa could spend as much as £250 million. So I think they're going to be right up there this season. And I've actually picked out Moussa Diaby, another of their summer signings. Good record last season in the Bundesliga, 14 goal involvements in terms of goals and assists, rapid pace. I think he's the 5th quickest player in the history of the Bundesliga. So I think he is a player, unlike Pau Torres, who will actually get fans off their seats.
Well, my pick, I can't say I'm too excited about it either. It's Declan Rice going to Arsenal. Obviously, as a West Ham fan, I'm not very excited, but I think Arsenal fans should be. Declan, from what he gave West Ham as a captain, from what he can do on the pitch, although he's not a massive goal scorer, he's not prolific in front of goal, but I think with, dare I say it, world-class players around him, he'll be able to have that freedom. Arteta might give him, a license to go forward a little bit more. What do you think about Declan Rice joining Arsenal? Do you think this will be a season where he really kind of fulfills his potential and becomes a real big star this season in the Premier League?
As a Manchester United fan, I'm a bit jealous, to be honest, because I've been touting Declan Rice as a transformative signing for United for a number of years. I think there's so much more to come. I speak to Stuart Pearce regularly, who coached him at West Ham, and he believes he can still add those goals and assists if he is given that freedom higher up the pitch, which I think you're right, he's going to get in this Arsenal team. He's a leader. It wouldn't surprise me if when Ødegaard is not available, he takes the armband. Yes, they've paid a lot of money. They've paid that British tax, if you like, but I think he's going to be a really good addition for Arsenal.
Yeah, I think you're looking at Declan Rice, and there was a lot of criticism about does he score enough goals. Listen, he's a fantastic player, but with Casemiro at Manchester United, I don't think he would have suited Manchester United. Yes, Casemiro is at 6, and he likes to play with 2 8s, and I think getting Mason Mount, I think he'll have a little bit more energy and creative going forward. So I don't think he really fitted Manchester United, because for me, he would have to have gone back to 2 pivots. If he'd have got Declan Rice, it would have been Declan Rice, Casemiro and Fernandes as a 10. So I think that going to Arsenal probably suited his style of football better. I agree with Alex. Ødegaard's a fantastic player. For me, it's where they fit in Havertz. I think that's going to be the biggest problem, the dynamic of the team. Saka, Martinelli. So where do they fit Havertz in? But I think Declan Rice is a very, very good player and will do really well for Arsenal. And they've improved. 3 signings they've brought in. Havertz scored a win in the Champions League final.
I don't see it with Havertz.
But he scored a win in the Champions League final.
Listen, why don't you see it, Alex?
I don't know what he is. He's not a number 9.
Do you think Arteta will be able to find that?
Need. Well, maybe. But they seem, to me, his best position is the 10. That's where he did most of the damage in Germany. But Arsenal have got a lot of players in that area already. I don't know how they accommodate them all. I think 65 million for Kai Havertz. Yes, he adds depth to the squad. He's got that experience, you say, have scored in the Champions League final. But I don't see that he adds much to that first 11.
So value for money, 65 million for a guy who's got a winner in a Champions League final.
I'll take Mason Mount for 60 over Havertz for 65.
People criticising Mason Mount for 60 million.
Yeah, well, let's talk about Mason Mount. It was another of my signings of the season. He didn't have a great season last year with Chelsea. He was in and out of the team, obviously. When he was on the pitch, it was a little bit indifferent, a little bit lacklustre, but that could have been because of what was happening bigger picture with Chelsea.
I think this is a signing that's been driven by Ten Hag. He saw Mount as a young player when he was on loan at Vitesse in Holland, has tracked his progress ever since. And I think what United are getting is someone who feels he's got a point to prove, because you're right, it wasn't great for him at Chelsea last year. Who was it great for at Chelsea? It was so chaotic behind the scenes. He felt disrespected by the way they conducted their contract negotiations with him. So I think that's going to put a bit of fire in his belly. He's got the number 7 shirt, that iconic 7 shirt at United. The fans are going to buy into him. I think he's got a chance, actually, of maybe being on that top assist market.
I'm not so sure of that,
No.
to be fair. No, top assist market, I think.
Do you think they need another striker for him to get in?
Desperately need a number 9. We talk about Marcus Rashford, the amount of goals he got last year. Listen, in pre-season, Jadon Sancho's been playing as a false 9. He got a goal against Arsenal, fantastic finish from a mistake. But Rashford, for me, his best work is on the left-hand side. All the way through the U side, Rashford's on the left, cutting in. You know, his pace, dynamic, and he had a brilliant season. But for me, for Manchester United to challenge, the addition of Mason Mount is good, but I think they're desperate for a number 9. If they don't get a number 9, they won't win anything.
You mentioned Harry Kane. He's up there, obviously, as he would be. And he now has James Madison providing the, assists for him if he stays. Is he another pick for you in there, James Madison? I mean, I think he got 9 or 10 assists last season in a Leicester side that obviously wasn't performing at all.
It's where they play Madison, because at Leicester, that 4-3-3 play on the right-hand side, drifting into that number 10 position. Defensive responsibility, he's got much better at that. But in an Ange Postecoglou side, we see how he dominated Celtic. He's going to have to work towards his own goal as well. But, to get him on the ball in the final third of the opposition is brilliant, because I thought he was superb for Leicester. They've got Leicester losing Tielemans and Madison. But for Madison, I think it's a huge season. It's a huge season. But I agree with Alex. He could be up there in assists if Harry Kane stays.
Right, up next, we're going to have a look at the movers and the shakers. Who has strengthened their squad the best? I'm going to start with you, Alex.
Put me on the spot on that one. I think Arsenal have done good business, despite what I've said about Kai Havertz. I think Declan Rice improves them. I think Timber gives them that natural right back, which, as well as he did last season, Ben White isn't. And it also gives them a bit of extra depth. Liverpool I'm intrigued about, because I think they've bought potential. I think Szoboszlai, people who've watched him regularly in Germany say there is raw talent there, but he's not the finished article. I think Alexis McAllister is a good player. I don't think he's a great player yet, so let's see how they bed in. I think Darwin Núñez will have a better season for them, so maybe they did a bit of their strengthening last season and we're planning ahead. Chelsea haven't strengthened at all as yet, but I'm sure that will change as we get nearer towards the season. Like Robbie said, I like Tonali at Newcastle, but maybe they've not done quite as much business as people think. So yeah, probably Arsenal at this moment in time.
I think Aston Villa. I think myself and Alex, you mentioned Diaby, I mentioned Pau Torres, Tielemans as well. I think what Unai Emery did was nothing short of unbelievable to get them into a European place, considering where they were when he took over. But those 3 additions are 3 players who can go into the starting 11 and the starting 11 which finished in a European place. So I think there's a lot of optimism for Aston Villa fans. Who
do you think hasn't strengthened their team enough?
Manchester United. I do. I know they've got Onana in, the goalkeeper, Mason Mount. There's talks of Amrabat, but they need a number 9. Until they get a number 9 in, for me, they'll be miles off Manchester City. They closed the gap last year, but they'll be miles off. That number 9 for Manchester United is imperative. Or if you look at the number 9s down the years, in recent years, you look at Ibrahimovic, they've gone for older players, Falcao. Now, listen, Harry Kane, he's the only person I'd go for. Talk about Haaland, but does he score enough goals? He's a fantastic prospect. But for me, if you're looking at what they've gone for in recent years, they've always gone for somebody who's done it. Maybe they've gone past their best. Kane's not past his best. If they can get him now, for me, whatever it costs, I would go for him. If it's the case, I don't know. But they haven't strengthened. Until they get number 9, for me, Manchester United will not achieve what they want to achieve.
Let's talk about Chelsea for a second, because I'm picking them for my underdog of the season. I mean, It's difficult to call Chelsea underdogs with what they've won over the years, but they had an absolutely shocking season last time out. It was their lowest points tally ever in the Premier League, fewest goals scored, finishing 12th outside the top 10 for the first time since 1996. By their own standards, it's absolutely diabolical. But obviously they've got a fantastic manager coming in now. You say they haven't strengthened enough, but they brought in Nkunku, who will definitely change things up in the squad. How do you think Chelsea will do? And do you think they'll manage to get back into that top 4 spots? Because for me, I think Mauricio Pochettino is going to turn it right around.
I'm the biggest Pochettino fanboy in the world. I saw him work close hand at Southampton. I thought he was a genius there. I think he gets disrespected for what he did at Spurs. He took Tottenham to a Champions League final. Tottenham have never really won anything in my lifetime, and he got them to a European Cup final. All he gets beaten with is the stick that he's never won a trophy here in England. Okay, but has he had the tools to win a trophy here in England? So I think he's the right appointment. I think especially for the profile of players that Chelsea want, young, up-and-coming players they can mould. So yeah, I see where you're coming from, but at the moment, they just look like they're lacking, particularly that midfield area. They've let so many midfielders go without replacing them. They're still trying to get Moises Caicedo, but Brighton aren't going to budge on that £100 million asking price. So I think there's work to be done. And Nkunku's an interesting one because we almost forgot that they'd signed him. So they signed him, obviously, in January with a view to this window. He's a surprise package, and he may well surprise a few people. So too Nicholas Jackson, who's had a good pre-season. He's very raw, but Pochettino's the right man to get the best out of them. Don't see them finishing in the top 4.
Let's look at the clubs at risk of relegation. Then those who haven't strengthened enough. There are the obvious picks like Luton Town and Sheffield United. Who are you going to go for, having a look at the list there?
Well, this is probably my specialist subject. Teams involved in a relegation battle throughout my career. Obviously, Luton Town, Sheffield United. I think it's easy for everybody to say those two, but I think those two will go down as who's going to finish in the bottom 3 with those two. Listen, unless they have an incredible season, it's a great story, Luton Town. We all know the story. Brilliant to see it. Wolves, I think Alex mentioned earlier, Wolves, Neves going was a huge blow. Jimenez, might be going to Fulham. They've lost a lot of players.
What about Fulham?
Fulham, yeah, I'll pass that on to you.
Well, obviously, Marco Silva is going to stay, which I think even caught people within Fulham by surprise. Mitrovic likely to leave. I don't see Jimenez as a ready-made replacement. I think that's a step down for Fulham. I think the key for them is keeping João Paulinho. We know he's got a lot of clubs, including West Ham, interested in him. If he stays, I think they'll be okay. I think Marco Silva proved himself actually to be quite a decent Premier League manager finally last season. So I don't fear for Fulham. I agree with Robbie. I fear for Wolves because they're trying to cut their cloth accordingly. That means losing players and trying to replace them on the cheap, really. They've obviously got Doherty coming back on a free transfer, but is he going to be the same Doherty that was there before? His career's taken a downward spiral since then. Not having Bournemouth at 2-1. I think they did great business in January, finished the season really well under Gary O'Neill. Maybe it looks a little harsh that he's been relieved of his duties, but by all accounts, the new manager, Iraola, has really impressed the players in training. I think they might just surprise people. I've got them to finish in the top 13. Bournemouth.
Top 13.
Top 13. It's very precise.
Wow, that's really good. Top 13.
I was going to say top 12, but I'm not that confident.
Okay, so let's move on to manager movement. We'll start with endangered species, the managers. Who do you believe will be the next manager to leave? There's some interesting names up there. It's always really difficult to call, isn't it, to predict the first manager to go. It's interesting David Moyes is up there, considering he won a trophy for West Ham for the first time in 43 years. Why do you think his name is there?
I always feel like David Moyes has quite an uneasy relationship with the West Ham fans. When it's going well, they love him. They call him the Moyesiah. When it's going badly, they're very quick to turn. And I think actually the European run saved them last season. And you could, as much as it's a brilliant achievement to win a European trophy, they beat who they should have beat. They didn't really play anybody of substance, certainly until the final. Still credit to him for doing that, but their Premier League form was quite dire. The stats are poor in terms of expected goals, and they were in a relegation battle for a lot of the season when we didn't expect them to be. So if they start poorly, and obviously they've got to fill the void left by Declan Rice, I could see the fans turning on him. He's only got a year left on his contract. I think 10-1's a really good price for David Moyes, actually. But this is the man who's the expert in sacking managers.
When the top of the league, when things weren't going well for West Ham, the fans were saying Moyes has to go. And, you know, I was saying, listen, surely you got to give him time. And look what happened, as Alex has said, at the end of the season. I was at the game when they won the Europa Conference against Fiorentina. It was a brilliant performance. Moyes, it's right, the fans, if they start poorly, Moyes could be under massive pressure, even though he's done unbelievably well. See the names on there, Rob Edwards, you know, and Paul Eckenbottom. Surely what those two achieved, especially Rob Edwards, if Luton get off to a bad start and a bottom of the league, cut adrift, he should keep his job. No matter what happens. Remember when, we go back to Sean Dyche, when Burnley got relegated, they stuck with Sean Dyche and he brought them back up. Luton to be in the Premier League, what Rob Edwards has achieved is nothing short than a miracle. Unbelievable. You look at the size of the stadium, look at the capacity, you look at the budget, look at what he's done. So for Rob Edwards, even if they're bottom of the league, listen, I played in that Derby team with 11 points. They're the worst ever Premier League side, you know. And if they were to be that side, he should still keep his job and have the opportunity to bring them back up. But we know how ruthless football can be. It's a horrible place, and I parted ways with the manager when we were top of the league at Macclesfield, which was harsh. But as an owner, sometimes you have to do what you believe is right for the football club, you know. So I think Rob Edwards, whatever happens, he should stay in a job.
Well, it's interesting you say that because Steve Cooper went through a bit of a rough patch, didn't he, last season? Nottingham Forest owners stayed with him. It was the right decision. Do you think, though, with his second season in the Premier League, they might be a bit stricter with how they expect the team to perform?
You know, as a football club owner, you can't be dictated to by social media, by outside influences. You have to believe in what you believe in. You know, and whatever that decision is, you know, Bournemouth have had to make a tough decision.
Brave decision.
Brave decision, but inevitably, you will come under fire if you get that decision wrong. So when you do make a change as an owner, you got your fingers crossed that it works out, because inevitably, you know, it would have been me who got the stick. So it'll be the Bournemouth owners. If it doesn't work out, it'll be those that get the stick. So going back to Steve Cooper, it was a right decision to keep him, and he can now build on that momentum which they had from last year. They've got a Langren from Manchester United, which is a good sign. And I believe, listen, £50 million in today's current transfer market is probably a decent fee. He's quick, you know, he looks to get him behind, you know, and with Brennan Johnson, Gibbs White, those three I think can do really well for Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, probably a bit more expectation on them this season. Okay, guys, I'm going to put you on the spot. If you have to pick one, the next manager to leave in the Premier League, who's it going to be? I'm
going for Lopetegui. I think Wolves will struggle this season. I think the players leaving, players coming in, you know, haven't replaced the quality that's gone. So I'm going to go Lopetegui.
Alex?
I'm not going to pick the favourite. I'm going to go for David Moyes.
Well, I hope you're wrong. Let's finish on a high. Let's have a look at winning a trophy. Who's going to win a trophy in 23-24 season? Who are your picks for this season?
I'm going to go Newcastle United. They got to a final, then lost out to Manchester United. You know, they need to strengthen more, but I think one of the best opportunities for Newcastle on a great ride might be that if they finish third in their group in the Champions League, go into the Europa League. I think that could be a real opportunity for Newcastle to win a trophy. We look at how English clubs have done in the Europa League. Remember Wolves getting to, you know, was it the quarterfinals or semi-finals, you know, not so long ago. So I think Newcastle United can have a real opportunity. The League Cup just depends how the squad adapts to Champions League football, Premier League football. Will he play the youngsters in the Carabao Cup, you know, the FA Cup? So it's going to be a big season for Newcastle, but I think realistically they could win a trophy. Do
you think it's a big season for Eddie Howe in particular?
Yeah, I do, because, you know, where the club want to go. I remember when Manchester City got bought out, Mark Hughes was the manager, and then they wanted big names, and Eddie Howe was an unbelievable well. He's a fantastic coach, and I'm glad he's got a great opportunity for Newcastle to finish in the top four, probably way ahead of when they thought they would do it. So I think that Eddie Howe, it's a big season for Eddie Howe, and the worry would be because of the ambition, because of, you know, it might be a case where if they don't do well, they'll look for that big name manager. It might not be the right choice, but the profile of the club now might demand a huge name, even though I think it would be wrong. Alex, what about you? Who are you looking to win a trophy this season? And can you nail down which trophy you think it might be as well?
Yeah, I can actually.
That's an easy one.
I'm going to go Aston Villa. And I would be surprised if they don't win the Conference League. When you look at the quality of opponents they're going to come up against, Unai Emery's record in Europe, what he did in La Liga, in terms of winning the Europa League on numerous occasions, I think gives them a great chance. That's my only fear for Villa, actually, that he might take that Conference League so seriously that it could impact on their league form. But I think it's going to be a really good season.
Well, thanks for watching the first episode of Route 1 Football. If you've enjoyed this and you've agreed with anything Robbie Savage has had to say, then let us know in the comments. I hope you join us for the next episode, Tipped for Success. See you then.